And thank you to Factor for sponsoring this episode. I travel a lot, and when I travel, I have to make sure I crunch down as many short-form and long-form videos that I can in a small amount of time. And that means the majority of my day when I'm not at the gym, I'm writing, or I'm shooting, I'm editing, and I don't have time to cook. I don't have time to clean. Well, luckily, Factor has your back and mine when it comes to living a busy, active lifestyle, and you're looking for a set of meals to accommodate said lifestyle. Factor offers a wide array of delicious meals that you can heat up in a quick pinch. Over are the days of stopping at a fast food drive-thru, and now you can come home to a delicious meal that accommodates your lifestyle and fitness goals. Factor is adding more exciting flavors to the menu so you can enjoy nutritious meals without compromising on flavor. I love my Factor meals, and I think you will too! Head on over to Factor75.com or click the link below and use code ZachTheBoldFB50 for 50% off and free breakfast for 1 year. That is right. You can head over to Factor75.com, use code ZachTheBoldFB50 for 50% off and free breakfast for 1 year. And thank you, Factor, for sponsoring this episode. Huzzah! Someone somewhere is having a bad time playing Dungeons and Dragons right now. Their characters being made fun of, their DM's homebrew monster TPK'd the party, there's some creep at the table. So they leave. They go home with a bad taste in their mouth. But it's just a dumb game, it's fine. They get in their car and they leave. Actually, no, they think what happened sucks. No, that's childish. No one else seemed to complain. Well, actually, that was bad because... And they ruminate on it. Until that rage they have festered for 30 minutes on their drive home comes to a boiling point. Their wheels come to an abrupt stop in their driveway. They kick open the front door. They sit down at their desk and they write 5 letters into the search bar, r/DnD. And they ask the world, was this a bad experience? And the world responds, yes. And that's where their story ends. But out there, there are people scouring these forums, hoping, begging, pleading that someone had the misfortune of having a bad experience at their table so that they can make a video reading about it to hundreds of thousands, if not millions of viewers. And then someone watches that video and they start to question, is my table that bad? And the cycle repeats. Luckily enough, I'm not doing that today. I'm talking about my own D&D experiences. And do not worry, I have about 5 more good long-form video ideas before I give you a top 10 list on how to min-max your sexy tiefling bard in D&D. Of course, these aren't all my stories. There is one that is so particularly bad that I will have to make a own standalone video for that down the line when I see fit. And it goes beyond this like funny, quick story that happened in D&D to something that was more of like, you see something bad, so you should stick up for yourself and do something about it. But that's not what this video is about. It's a collection of short to medium-sized stories that I've kind of collected throughout the years that I would love to share with you. I'm also doing it because it gives me some time to reflect on the great times I've had playing what I think is to be the greatest game of all time. One fall, I was staying at the varsity lacrosse houses around campus, and I had not played lacrosse. I didn't know how it worked, but I could make cool highlight reel videos for them, so I did that for a little bit. Around that time, I had really started wanting to DM my first ever game. So what I did was I found some tier 1 ends at level 1, like 3 to 4 monsters and the whole thing, pre-written module, and I had asked my very jock, although very cool, very funny jock roommates if they wanted to play in my D&D game, and they said yes. To this day, I've never read the D&D rules. I've looked up highlights. I mean, I've played so much D&D now that I have just kind of learned about every class. I have seen every subclass. I know how they work. And that, you know, it's easier to look something up when you have such a base knowledge of how the game works in the first place that it's not a problem now, right? However, back then, I had taken everything I had learned from actual plays and maybe the one-shots that I played every now and again. And I remember being hyper-focused on how spell casting works, like trying to figure out how to cast a spell, because I had a wizard at the table and I never played a spellcaster. And that was a little bit to my detriment because I had spent all my prep time learning how spellcasters work, and I skipped a lot of the fundamentals on how D&D is played. So to set the scene, the party ends up in the basement of an inn because the innkeeper hired them to investigate the recent disappearance of their coworker who had gone missing in their basement. Well, they get ambushed by a spider and everyone rolls initiative. Oh my gosh, easy. The highest number goes first. And then we get into combat and I forget everything. that I thought I knew about Dungeons and Dragons. So 11 plus my modifier does a 13 hit. I couldn't remember how to calculate armor. What does AC mean? What do I do with this number? Do I just subtract it to a roll? Do I add it? Do I take something above it or below it? I don't know. So I did what any good DM does, and I lied through my teeth. Hey, you hit him, buddy. Good job. All right. And everyone clapped. Everyone cheered. And then they roll their damage, and I just take the spider's HP, and I take the damage off. Easy as peasy. I guess it's my turn now. I roll a 15. I'm silent. The entire table is staring at me. Is everything okay, they ask? Yes. Yes, I'm calculating. I throw up my fingers like I'm counting, but those numbers don't even make sense. Roll to dodge? Okay. 11. It hits. Don't I do something with my AC here? I got it. Okay. Do I have pride? Yes. Do I have an ego? Yes, but I got over it. In that moment, should I have just stopped the game and said, hey, I need to check on some rules? I should have. But then my friends would have thought I was as cool for knowing all the rules. I did eventually have to tell them that that is not, in fact, how AC worked, and it hurt me inside. So for the rest of the time, I stood up above them so I could look down at them, and it made me feel better. Number 2, changing stat blocks. So this story is about a different group of friends, some high school buddies I knew that were kind of notorious to me for being difficult to control during board games or TTRPGs. Don't get me wrong, they were incredibly funny players. And when they locked in these 400-hour-a-week working, you got soft hands, brother-esque blue-collar guys can really roleplay. And also, just to preface, I was new to DMing still, but I had a basic grasp of most to all the rules. We were playing Dragon of Icespire Peak. We were about 5 hours into it, and I have a problem with this module where there's too many big groups of enemies, and it's made as an introductory module, and as a new-ish DM, it was kind of complicated, and it took forever to track all of those monsters in the initiative system. So what I decided to do during our next encounter, where there was like 10 twig blights, was to cut all of them out of it and put in one single large enemy. So I went to 5e.tools, which is like an open resource for D&D information, and went to their bestiary. What is the equivalent of 10 CR 1/8 twig blights? Well, of course, it's 1 CR 9 tree ent. Don't worry, I at least had the awareness to look at its like health and the damage it could do and be like, well, that might be a little too high. 5e.tools has like this de-leveling system inside of their bestiary that's like experimental, and I knocked it down a couple pegs. So I tell my players this ancient, huge tree ent is blocking their way to their next objective. And without a second thought, my fighter Aarakocra goes careening towards him. Okay, roll initiative. He rolls lower. I roll to attack. Does a 25 hit? A 25? My AC is 17. I looked at him like I just committed a cardinal sin. If this was the debuffed 2-hit, how much damage was I about to inflict on that poor soul? I get him down to 1 HP instantly. He dashes on his turn and flies away, and because I didn't want to seem biased or that I was targeting anybody or over-punishing them, I rolled a d6 in front of the table, one person for each number on the die, and I rolled his number. Okay, apparently treants can throw rocks. Did you know that? So I roll at disadvantage. To be fair, he was very far away. I crit on both dice. I hurl this rock at this bird at Mach speed. It explodes on this bird, falls down to the ground, takes more damage, and dies instantly. Some people are going to disagree with me on this. I still stick to it to this day. I made his character go unconscious, not dead, even though, yes, it was his decision to go out in front of everyone and attack this treant. But you have to remember that I put this entire encounter in, and I didn't know what I was doing. Number 3. Can we get on with it? This one was just a couple of years back. I was in Los Angeles. I had just split off from a friend group because of creative differences, and I was looking for new friends. I wanted people who had aligning hobbies with me as well. So I headed down to my local game store. They had Adventure League night, and they put me into some group with a few other people, and it was the middle of the Dragonlance campaign. I didn't want to step on anyone's toes or, intrude on their campaign, and even though it's public play, it is literally made for you to go and leave, maybe come back, maybe not, right? But this group clearly knew each other and what they were doing and their goals. It was the middle of their campaign, and so I had made a monk named Mark with barely any personality. He had no accent. He had no goals other than, of course, like helping the party and being a hero and kind of just be a background character. And the first few sessions were great. I had met a lot of great people. I had seen people play Dungeons and Dragons in a totally different way than I have been playing my entire life. In-game, we were completing a dungeon, and when that was finally completed, we had a mission to go tell a general what had transpired the last few days. I was sitting back, relaxing, watching my table pretty much roleplay for the first time because they were outside of the dungeon talking to this general, and this older gentleman interrupts in the corner, who had been there the entire time, and goes, "Can we please wrap this up? All right, some of us want to finish this module." And everyone was appalled. And I was sitting in the corner with like literally the monkey clapping with cymbals or like milk spilling over was filling my head. I was trying so hard not to laugh, to see in real time the mix between older generations and new generations play this game and how that kind of conflicts sometimes. Like things you only hear about in forums happening to me right then and there in front of my face. But I didn't say anything. I felt like it wasn't really my place. You know, I'd been there for 3 sessions. I still didn't really understand the group dynamic yet. Like maybe that was, oh, that's him. That's the guy who sits in the corner and complains when we roleplay in a roleplay game. So, afterwards, the DM did have a one-on-one conversation with them, which made me realize, okay, yeah, this is not a part of the group dynamic, actually. Number 4, wasting a whole lot of time. Flashback to one of the first ever campaigns I even played in. We were set inside of Faerun, but like a homebrew continent within Faerun, and we had spent about a year of play making it to the first ever big city. I was really into D&D roleplay at this time. I played it straight as an arrow. I wanted to be the serious character, and I've kind of lightened up. It depends on the situation, right? I can always be a serious roleplay character if I want to be, but I like to have, I like to have a little bit of fun with it as well. My buddy, we'll say Buddy A, was playing this wizard who was kind of like Chris Chan in this Faerun world, and the other guy was a elf cleric who was old and didn't really have a personality, but they didn't make a backstory because they didn't care. They were only there playing D&D because they wanted to hang out with us, The big city was like a mix between steampunk and high fantasy, kinda, but it was like people weren't riding on dragons or zeppelins. Either way, we made it to this gondola that lifted us through the air, and it looked like a New York subway train cart, so inside there was a bunch of posters, and 2 of them were about an upcoming election for the People's Chair, which is like this thing inside of the city council where elected officials could run a department of the city. And there were 2 big head honchos that were kind of going at it for the spot. My buddy made one joke. "Well, baby, I want to be the People's Chair." And we all laughed it off and left him to it, and we made it to the council building, and he said, "Oh no, I am actually gonna go for People's Chair." It's like you go and pick up gas at a nearby town, and you see that they are having an election for sanitation manager, and you go, "I'm gonna put myself on the ballot." We committed to that bit. And to this day, is still one of the biggest reasons that I think DMs should not just go with the flow, go do what their players want to. We committed to the bit that we would turn our wizard Christian guy into a full city council member in a city we just showed up to and did not care about. And it took us 2 years. 2 years! And that's not in-game time. That is 2 real-life years for us to get our buddy into the People's Chair. And in the meantime, the DM moved our dumb side plot into, more of the main story so we could find out if there's a conspiracy and everything. And when we finally got the People's Chair, I'll never forget this. My DM looks at us all and goes, "And now you are holding the position of People's Chair." And we all look at each other and we're like, "Well, now what? I guess we play the game." Okay. After the election arc, we had made more progress in those next 3 sessions for the main story than we had in the previous 2 years. And it felt like I wasn't even playing the same game. It reminded me that I'm like, oh, right, this thing is supposed to be an international conspiracy, and there's like a big bad, and there's, oh, right, duh. Number 5, pissing someone else's pants. Now this is the same group, just way earlier on in the campaign, and it was right at the beginning. Both me and the Chris Chan wizard player had played a little bit of D&D. The elf cleric had not, pretty much at all. And full disclosure, before I tell the rest of this story, I've known these guys for years, since birth, since before then, you know. We like to push each other's buttons, you know, we like to poke fun at one another, like dudes do, like bros do. Okay, I can't remember the full context to why we even started doing this. We started using prestidigitation on the elf cleric to make it look like he pissed his pants. And it was funny, it was an ongoing bit, you know, oh, you're at a shopkeep, we'll look down, oh, he's got piss on his pants. You know, we wrap up one day, and I get a call, and it's the DM, and it went something along the lines of like, hello? We have to talk about something. Is my character too strong? No, we're having a problem. What kind of problem? A piss pants problem. I was so confused. Is it ruining the atmosphere of the game? Yes, but I know that's not enough to make you guys stop doing it. The cleric is threatening to leave the game. I, couldn't believe it, dude. What? The cleric has told me that if you guys do the piss pants bit again, that he'll leave the game. He doesn't even have a backstory. All of a sudden he cares about a loser where he piss on his pants? Yes. So stop it, or there's just gonna be 2 of you. I just couldn't believe it. Listen, I get it. I know. It's bad and intrusive. I mean, we've done a million other things to this guy in real life and to his actual character, and to see this was the straw that broke the camel's back. We play that campaign to this day. We really do. And we have not brought it up since. But we do. We might have the potential. Number 6, ruined plans. So this was recent. It was actually for my last campaign that I ran for my friends inside of York's Wallow, my homebrew world set inside a steampunk dystopia inside of the Holy Empire of America. This was at the end of Act 2. Our favorite heroes had made it to this ginormous spaceship in the air, and it was decorated like a huge circus, but in reality it was a front for the main villain so that he could imprison and torture his enemies and also work on these bio weapons. So after about 10 sessions, my party had finally made it to fight the ringmaster of the circus, a gentleman named Henry Willow, who is this large, foreboding figure with a patchwork cloak on and a jester mask. As I do at the end of any arc for any of my games that I play, I have a boss and I buy a mini for him. This is him, and yes, he's gray. I don't paint, I don't care. All right, but there are gonna be 3 distinct phases to this fight. First phase, our heroes confront Henry Willow and some of his minions and fight him inside of the very large cockpit inside of this very large ship. The ship starts moving and dropping these ODST dive pods full of plague rats around the town. Now, after Henry Willow's humanoid version is defeated in phase 1, we move to phase 2, where his body touches this black ichor and turns into this huge monstrosity. Then we get to phase 3. The Holy Empire of America sends their highest level clerics to surround the ship and summon what is known as the Liberty Anvil, essentially an orbital laser made of divine power, kind of like the Hammer of Dawn on steroids. And at that point, it was supposed to be a conflicting thing where we had a soldier of the Holy Empire that was now seen as collateral damage for this giant prison dropping malaise plague rats throughout the entire town, and it was going to be this pinnacle climax of Act 2. I had made a full playlist that changed depending on which phase they were on. I had made written descriptions for how those phases would change. I had even added a round timer that added in-game implications if they took too long or even death. I had made the perfect fight. I had made it so that every single movement, every action one took within this fight had in-game repercussions, and it was beautiful. The first phase went off without a hitch. They learn about the villain's backstory that's kind of like Mr. Freeze, but legally distinct, and they felt bad for him, but they still felt justified in their actions, and they kicked his butt, and they made it to phase 2, and he turned into this giant monstrosity, and the playlist changed, and I brought out the mini, and they thought it was so sweet, and then they kicked his butt again, and they made it to phase 3, and it was still challenging, but they made it to phase 3, and these clerics encircled around the ship, and the clerics were wearing these blindfolds, and they had this metal thing on top of their head, and they had these giant rosaries around them, and as they began to pray, literally they could see this divine energy begin to pool around them and around their skin, and they were running out of time. They turned into birds and they flew away. What? Someone turned into a giant bird, everyone got onto his back, and they flew away, completely skipping phase 3 of the boss fight. and watching as he was ripped atom from a safe distance away. I didn't even stop him. I mean, what can I do? Well, Zach, you're in charge of the entire world. You can do whatever. I could have, but it was such a glaring oversight by my combat design that I almost felt it was more perfect for them to ruin everything. Them ruin everything by playing smart and doing the smart thing. The mini was out probably for a good 7 minutes before the fight was over. I couldn't believe it. But that's it. That's some of my favorite stories I've had playing Dungeons and Dragons. I'd love to hear some of yours. I'd love for you guys to put them in the comments, and then I'll come on here. Guys, I'll come on here, I'll start making shorts, and I'll start reading them to everybody. Oh my gosh, wouldn't that be fun? I'm not doing that. That is a joke. I appreciate you guys tuning in. We're almost at 500,000. Make sure to slap that mother friggin' subscribe button. I might have more stories in the future. I might not. Who knows? All right? And for all those asking, all right, we're working on another episode of your favorite Advanced Dungeons & Dragons module reviewers, and that'll be out in the future. But I appreciate you guys tuning in for this one. I can't wait to hear your stories in the comments below. And thanks. And bye!